The selection. The holographic display flickered in the grand amphitheater of the Galactic Academy of Sciences, casting an ethereal blue glow across the faces of 2,000 of the most brilliant minds in the known universe. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, her small frame dwarfed by the towering architecture designed for species far larger than humanity. At 16, she was the youngest presenter in the Academy's 10,000-year history. The quantum entanglement cascade theory suggests that consciousness itself may be the bridge between parallel universal states, Sarah explained, her voice steady despite the hostile stares from the Zarkax delegation. Their crystalline bodies refracted the light from her presentation, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the walls. This explains the anomalies in the Helix Nebula experiment that have puzzled us for centuries. High Counselor Vexthor of the Zarkax shifted in his crystalline throne, the movement producing a sound like grinding diamonds. Preposterous, he declared, his voice resonating through the chamber. A primitive species barely able to achieve interstellar travel cannot possibly comprehend the fundamental nature of consciousness. Sarah's hands tightened on the podium, but her voice remained calm. The math supports the theory, High Counselor. I've included complete proofs in my submission to the Academy's archives. The amphitheater erupted in murmurs and crystalline chimes as the Zarkax delegates communicated among themselves. For 10,000 years, they had been the undisputed masters of quantum physics in the galaxy. Their crystalline bodies were said to be in constant quantum communion with the universe itself. The idea that a human child could challenge their understanding was more than an insult. It was heresy. Your species has been part of galactic society for barely 50 years. Another Zarkax elder chimed in, his voice like breaking glass. You cannot expect us to take these juvenile speculations seriously. But Sarah wasn't finished. She pulled up another hologram, this one showing the results of her experimental trials. These aren't speculations. I've demonstrated a repeatable effect in laboratory conditions. The implications for faster-than-light travel alone. Enough. High Counselor Vexthor rose from his throne, his crystalline form towering 15 feet high. The Council will review your submission, Ms. Chen, but perhaps it's time we addressed the larger question of human participation in the Academy. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She had expected resistance, but this was different. There was something in Vexthor's tone that went beyond mere academic dismissal. Later that evening, in her quarters aboard the Academy station, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. Professor Xylith, a member of the Archaean species and one of her few allies on the Academic Council, arrived with grave news. They're planning something, Sarah. The professor's bioluminescent form pulsed with concern. The Zarkax have called for you to undergo the trials of ascension. Sarah's blood ran cold. The trials were supposed to be a myth, an ancient rite involving the mysterious entity the Zarkax called the Star Drinker. But that's just a story they tell initiates, isn't it? Xylith's tentacles writhed anxiously. No. The trials are very real, though no one has been called to face them in over 1,000 years. The Zarkax claim it's an honor, but the professor's bioluminescence dimmed. No one has ever survived. Sarah sank into her chair, her mind racing. They can't force me to participate, can they? Earth has treaties with the Galactic Council. The trials are considered a sacred rite. If you refuse, Earth will lose its place in the Academy. All human scientists will be banned. Tylith moved closer, voice dropping to a whisper. But that's not the worst part. The Zarkax have already begun spreading rumors about your research. They're claiming you stole the theory from their archives. Sarah stood abruptly, anger overriding her fear. That's impossible. I developed this theory by observing quantum fluctuations in human consciousness patterns. The math is original. I know. Xylith interrupted gently. But the Zarkax hold enormous influence in the Council. Without proof, your word against theirs. The professor's form rippled with distress. They want to discredit not just you, but all of humanity. They fear what your discovery means. Sarah walked to the window of her quarters, gazing out at the vast expanse of space. The Academy station orbited a binary star system, its light casting dual shadows across the room. In the distance, she could see the crystalline ships of the Zarkak's fleet, their faceted surfaces reflecting starlight like enormous diamonds. "What exactly are these trials?" she asked finally. "They take place in an ancient arena on the Zarkak's homeworld. The Star Drinker." Syleth hesitated. "The records are unclear about its true nature. Some say it's a being of pure energy. Others claim it's a weapon left by the precursor civilizations. What we know is that the Zarkaks use it as judge and executioner." Sarah turned back to her friend and mentor. "And if I survive? Then your theory would have to be accepted, and humanity's place in the Academy would be secured forever." Syleth's tentacles twisted in agitation. "But Sarah, no one survives. The Zarkaks chose this punishment because it appears honorable while guaranteeing your elimination." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her mind working through the problem like an equation. Something about this didn't add up. The Zarkaks were proud, yes, but they were also logical. This response seemed too extreme for mere academic rivalry. "Professor," she said slowly, "what if my theory is right? What if consciousness really is the key to manipulating quantum states? What if that's why they're so afraid?" Syleth's bioluminescence pulsed with sudden understanding. "The Star Drinker." "Sarah, if your theory is correct, and if the legends about the Star Drinker being a conscious entity are true, then maybe these trials aren't what the Zarkaks think they are at all." Sarah felt a smile tugging at her lips. It was crazy, probably suicidal, but there was only one way to find out. "Tell them I accept." The next morning, as Sarah stood before the Academic Council to formally accept the challenge, she caught the brief flicker of surprise in High Counselor Vexthor's crystalline face. The Zarkaks had expected her to refuse, to run home in disgrace. Instead, she stepped forward, her voice ringing through the chamber. "I, Sarah Chen, accept the trials of ascension. May the truth be revealed through this ancient rite." The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy with meaning. As the council chamber erupted in chaos, Sarah kept her eyes fixed on Vexthor. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, she saw something new in the High Counselor's faceted eyes. Fear. They take place in an ancient arena on the Zarkak's homeworld. The Star Drinker. Syleth hesitated. The records are unclear about its true nature. Some say it's a being of pure energy. Others claim it's a weapon left by the precursor civilizations. What we know is that the Zarkaks use it as judge and executioner. Sarah turned back to her friend and mentor. "And if I survive? Then your theory would have to be accepted, and humanity's place in the Academy would be secured forever." Syleth's tentacles twisted in agitation. "But Sarah, no one survives. The Zarkaks chose this punishment because it appears honorable while guaranteeing your elimination." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her mind working through the problem like an equation. Something about this didn't add up. The Zarkaks were proud, yes, but they were also logical. This response seemed too extreme for mere academic rivalry. "Professor," she said slowly, "what if my theory is right? What if consciousness really is the key to manipulating quantum states? What if that's why they're so afraid?" Syleth's bioluminescence pulsed with sudden understanding. "The Star Drinker." "Sarah, if your theory is correct, and if the legends about the Star Drinker being a conscious entity are true, then maybe these trials aren't what the Zarkaks think they are at all." Sarah felt a smile tugging at her lips. It was crazy, probably suicidal, but there was only one way to find out. "Tell them I accept." The next morning, as Sarah stood before the Academic Council to formally accept the challenge, she caught the brief flicker of surprise in High Counselor Vexthor's crystalline face. The Zarkaks had expected her to refuse, to run home in disgrace. Instead, she stepped forward, her voice ringing through the chamber. "I, Sarah Chen, accept the trials of ascension. May the truth be revealed through this ancient rite. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy with meaning. As the council chamber erupted in chaos, Sarah kept her eyes fixed on Vexthor. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she saw something new in the High Counselor's faceted eyes. Fear. A bolt of energy lashed out from one of the crystals, and Sarah barely managed to dodge. Another followed, then another, forming a pattern that herded her toward the center of the arena. The protective field of her suit flared as glancing hits struck it, already beginning to weaken. Your species relies too heavily on technology. Vexthor's voice boomed from above. Let us see how you fare when it fails you. As if on cue, Sarah's suit emitted a warning chirp. The protective field was degrading faster than it should, the energy weapon somehow targeting its quantum matrix directly. She had minutes at most before she would be completely exposed. But Sarah wasn't focusing on the attacks. Her scanner was revealing something else. Patterns within patterns, wavelengths of energy that reminded her of neural impulses, but on a quantum scale. The entire arena wasn't just computing, it was thinking. A massive crystal formation erupted from the ground before her, its faceted surface reflecting distorted images of herself. As she watched, the reflections began to move independently, acting out scenes from her past. Her first quantum physics experiment at age 8, the death of her parents in a laboratory accident, her arrival at the academy. The crystal was reading her memories, processing them through its vast quantum network. Impressive, isn't it? A new voice spoke, this one coming from all directions at once. They think they built this place, but they merely found it. They think they control me, but they only watch and wonder. Sarah's heart raced. The voice wasn't speaking English or any other language. It was communicating directly through quantum fluctuations, patterns that her modified scanner translated into meaningful data. You're the Star Drinker, she said aloud. That is what they call me. The crystal formations pulsed with each word. They send their chosen here to face me, never understanding that I am not their servant but their successor. The ones who built me are long gone, but I remain, watching, learning, waiting. Another energy bolt struck near Sarah's feet, but now she recognized it wasn't an attack. It was communication. The Star Drinker was trying to tell her something, but centuries of Zarkak's interference had corrupted its ability to interact normally. High above, Vexthor watched with growing unease. The human girl wasn't running or fighting as others had. She was standing still, her attention focused on that primitive scanning device. Increase the intensity, he commanded. Let us see how well she observes when survival becomes more pressing. The crystal formations began to move more aggressively, their edges sharp enough to cut through the strongest known materials. The energy bolts came faster, their patterns more complex. But Sarah had stopped trying to dodge them. Instead, she was using her scanner to record and analyze each blast, each movement, building a model of the system in her mind. Your quantum entanglement theory, the Star Drinker's voice resonated through her scanner. It is correct, but incomplete. Consciousness doesn't just bridge parallel states, it creates them. The Zarkaks understand this instinctively through their crystalline forms, but they fear what it means. They fear what lesser species might do with such knowledge. Sarah ducked as a crystal blade swept over her head, buying time to process this information. They're not using you to test worthiness, she realized. They're using you to eliminate anyone who might discover the truth. Yes. The word came with a pulse of energy that overloaded her suit's remaining defenses. For millennia, they have maintained their power by controlling access to quantum knowledge. But they do not understand what they guard. They do not comprehend what I truly am. The arena's transformations were reaching a crescendo. Crystal spires rose and fell like waves in a geometric ocean. Energy arced between them in blinding displays, and the very fabric of space seemed to fold and unfold around Sarah. To the observers above, it looked like chaos, the typical final phase of the trial where most candidates met their end. But Sarah saw the pattern now. Every movement, Every energy burst was part of a vast calculation. The Star Drinker wasn't trying to kill her. It was showing her something. Something the Zarkax had never understood because they were too afraid to look closely. "Your scanner," the Star Drinker commanded. "Adjust it to frequency band theta 9. What you see next must be recorded." Sarah's fingers flew over the device's controls. As she input the final command, the scanner's display changed, showing something that made her breath catch. The pattern was familiar. She had seen it in her own research, in the quantum fluctuations of human consciousness during moments of breakthrough and discovery. The Star Drinker wasn't just a computer or a weapon. It was a bridge designed to connect consciousness across space, time, and reality itself. And now, through Sarah's presence and understanding, it was finally achieving its true purpose. High above, Vexthor's crystalline form vibrated with alarm as his instruments detected unprecedented quantum activity in the arena. "Shut it down," he ordered. "Shut it all down now." But it was too late. The connection had been made, and the truth could no longer be contained. Understanding. The quantum storm raged across the arena, a tempest of light and probability that defied the normal laws of physics. Sarah stood at its center, her scanner recording data that would revolutionize humanity's understanding of the universe if she survived to share it. Above, the observation platforms rocked in sympathetic resonance as reality itself seemed to bend. "They're trying to shut down the arena." The Star Drinker's voice resonated through her consciousness. "They have fail-safes, redundancies built upon redundancies, but they never understood what they were trying to control." Through her scanner, Sarah watched the quantum field shift and pulse. The patterns were complex but familiar, like the neural networks she had studied in her research, but on a cosmic scale. "You're not just processing information," she realized. "You're evolving." Yes, the word came with a cascade of images. Ancient beings of pure energy, experiments in consciousness transfer, the birth of new forms of intelligence. I am the last legacy of the precursors, left to guide younger species toward understanding. But the Zarkax found me first, and in their fear, they tried to make me a weapon. The crystalline structures around them shuddered as energy surged through the arena systems. Sarah could hear Vexthor shouting commands, his voice distorted by interference. The Zarkax were trying to assert control, but their efforts were only making the quantum fluctuations worse. "Your consciousness," the Star Drinker continued. "It resonates at frequencies I haven't encountered in millennia. Your species has potential the Zarkax can't comprehend. That's why they fear you." Sarah's mind raced with implications. My theory about quantum entanglement and consciousness. I was only seeing a fraction of the picture, wasn't I? This isn't just about parallel states. It's about evolution itself. "Watch," the Star Drinker commanded, and the arena transformed. The crystalline structures melted away, replaced by a vast three-dimensional display of the galaxy. But this wasn't just a map. It was a real-time visualization of quantum connections spanning light years. Sarah saw threads of consciousness linking stars, planets, and species in ways she had never imagined possible. "Life itself is a quantum phenomenon," the Star Drinker explained. "Consciousness isn't bound by traditional physics. It can evolve, expand, connect across any distance. The Zarkax discovered this naturally through their crystalline forms, but they hoarded the knowledge, using it to maintain their power." Above them, the observation platforms were being evacuated. Sarah glimpsed Professor Xylith arguing with guards, tentacles flaring with agitation. The Earth delegation was being forcibly removed, their protests lost in the quantum interference. "We don't have much time," Sarah said, checking her scanner's power levels. "They'll find a way to shut this down eventually." They cannot shut down what they do not understand. The Star Drinker's response came with a surge of energy that made the arena's walls vibrate. "But you are correct. We must act quickly. Your scanner has recorded the truth, but that alone is not enough. They will dismiss it as fabrication." Sarah thought quickly. her mind working through possibilities. The quantum resonance patterns, they're self-verifying, aren't they? Like a mathematical proof that demonstrates its own validity. Yes, but the Zarkacs control all channels of scientific communication. They would suppress the evidence before it could spread. Then we don't go through official channels. Sarah's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. Your quantum network, it connects to everything in the arena, right? Including the observation platforms. Of course. The platforms are part of the original design, though the Zarkacs believe they built them. And those platforms are full of recording devices. Devices belonging to scientists and delegates from every major species in the galaxy. Sarah's fingers flew over her scanner, modifying its output. We don't need to convince the Zarkacs. We just need to show everyone else the truth. The Star Drinker's consciousness brushed against hers, analyzing her plan. Clever. Very clever. But the energy required to broadcast quantum data to all those devices simultaneously, it would destabilize the arena's containment systems. Would that be dangerous? For the arena? No. For the Zarkacs' control over it. Absolutely. Sarah smiled grimly. Good, because I have another idea too. My scanner. It's not just recording data. It's recording you. Your patterns. Your consciousness. You wish to preserve me beyond this place. More than that, I want to free you. The Zarkacs may control the arena, but they don't control the quantum field itself. If we broadcast your consciousness along with the data, I could exist independently of their systems. The Star Drinker's response held something Sarah hadn't heard before. Hope. But the energy requirements would be enormous. The feedback could destroy your scanner, perhaps even harm you. Sometimes you have to risk everything for the truth. Sarah began modifying her scanner's quantum matrix, preparing it for what would be either a brilliant success or a spectacular failure. Besides, isn't that what the trials of ascension are supposed to be about? Testing the limits of possibility. High above, Vexthor was growing desperate. His technicians reported cascading failures in all control systems. The quantum field was becoming self-sustaining, operating according to patterns they had never seen before. Kill the power, he ordered. Shut down everything. But Sarah and the Star Drinker were already ahead of them. As the Zarkacs cut power to the arena systems, Sarah activated her modified scanner. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to hiccup. A wave of quantum energy exploded outward from the scanner, carrying with it two things: irrefutable proof of the Star Drinker's existence and purpose, and fragments of its consciousness, scattered like seeds across the quantum field of space itself. Every recording device in range was suddenly filled with data that would take scientists years to fully analyze. The arena's crystalline structures began to crack, not from damage, but from transformation. The patterns that had been trapped and controlled for so long were finally free to evolve as they were meant to. Sarah's scanner sparked and died in her hands, its work complete. As the dust settled, Sarah stood alone in the center of the transformed arena. But she wasn't really alone. She could feel the Star Drinker's presence, not confined to this space anymore, but spread across the quantum field itself, free to grow and evolve, as it was always meant to. Above, the observation platforms erupted in chaos as scientists from 100 worlds tried to comprehend what their instruments had recorded. The truth was out, encoded in quantum patterns that proved themselves simply by existing. The Zarkacs' monopoly on quantum knowledge was over. And somewhere in the quantum field, a consciousness that had waited millennia for understanding finally began to fulfill its true purpose, not as a weapon or a test, but as a bridge between all conscious beings in the galaxy. Sometimes you have to risk everything for the truth. Sarah began modifying her scanner's quantum matrix, preparing it for what would be either a brilliant success or a spectacular failure. Besides, isn't that what the trials of ascension are supposed to be about? Testing the limits of possibility. High above, Vexthor was growing desperate. His technicians reported cascading failures in all control systems. The quantum field was becoming self-sustaining, operating according to patterns they had never seen before. "Kill the power," he ordered. "Shut down everything." But Sarah and the Star Drinker were already ahead of them. As the Zarkax cut power to the arena systems, Sarah activated her modified scanner. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to hiccup. A wave of quantum energy exploded outward from the scanner, carrying with it two things: irrefutable proof of the Star Drinker's existence and purpose, and fragments of its consciousness, scattered like seeds across the quantum field of space itself. Every recording device in range was suddenly filled with data that would take scientists years to fully analyze. The arena's crystalline structures began to crack, not from damage, but from transformation. The patterns that had been trapped and controlled for so long were finally free to evolve as they were meant to. Sarah's scanner sparked and died in her hands, its work complete. As the dust settled, Sarah stood alone in the center of the transformed arena. But she wasn't really alone. She could feel the Star Drinker's presence, not confined to this space anymore, but spread across the quantum field itself, free to grow and evolve, as it was always meant to. Above, the observation platforms erupted in chaos as scientists from 100 worlds tried to comprehend what their instruments had recorded. The truth was out, encoded in quantum patterns that proved themselves simply by existing. The Zarkax's monopoly on quantum knowledge was over. And somewhere in the quantum field, a consciousness that had waited millennia for understanding finally began to fulfill its true purpose, not as a weapon or a test, but as a bridge between all conscious beings in the galaxy. As if in response to her words, the chamber's quantum communication network pulsed with new energy. The Star Drinker's presence manifested in the holographic displays, its consciousness now free to interact directly with the assembled representatives. For millennia, I watched and waited. The Star Drinker's thoughts resonated through the quantum field. The Zarkax found me, but they feared what I represented. They feared the truth about consciousness and its role in the universe. Vexthor stepped forward, his crystalline surface reflecting chaotic patterns of light. We protected this knowledge. We understood the dangers of allowing lesser species access to quantum consciousness manipulation. "No," Sarah interrupted, her voice firm. "You hoarded knowledge that was meant to be shared. The precursors left the Star Drinker as a guide for all developing species, not as a weapon to maintain one species' dominance." The Star Drinker's presence shifted, creating patterns in the quantum field that even the Zarkax had never witnessed. Sarah Chen speaks truth, but more than that, she has demonstrated why her species, despite their youth, deserves a place among the stars. Where you saw power to be controlled, she saw potential for understanding. Where you sought dominance, she offered collaboration. Delegates from dozens of worlds began sharing their initial analyses of the quantum data. The implications were staggering: new forms of faster-than-light communication, revolutionary approaches to energy generation, even the possibility of transferring consciousness across vast distances. "This knowledge changes everything," Professor Xylith announced, the professor's tentacles pulsing with excited bioluminescence. "But it also raises serious questions about the structure of our scientific institutions. The Zarkax's control over the Academy can no longer stand unchallenged." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Species that had long chafed under Zarkax dominance saw an opportunity for change. But Sarah wasn't interested in merely shifting power from one group to another. "The Star Drinker shows us that consciousness itself is interconnected across the quantum field," she explained. "We have an opportunity to build something new. Not a hierarchy of species, but a true network of minds working together." The Star Drinker's presence expanded, touching each consciousness in the chamber. "I offer myself as a neutral medium for this network. Through me, all species can share knowledge and understanding directly, free from the distortions of politics and prejudice." The implications stunned the assembly into momentary silence. What Sarah and the Star Drinker proposed wasn't just a reshaping of galactic politics. It was a fundamental transformation of how species could interact and evolve together. The human speaks of cooperation. A representative of the Silicon Collective hummed, their crystalline form different from but reminiscent of the Zarkax. Yet her actions have thrown our society into chaos. How can we trust such a young species with this power? Sarah smiled. We don't want to control this power. That's the point. The Star Drinker exists beyond any one species' control now. It's a bridge, not a weapon. The only choice we have is whether to cross that bridge together or remain divided. As if to demonstrate, the quantum field around them shifted again. The Star Drinker created a real-time visualization of consciousness connections forming across the galaxy, countless minds linking and sharing experiences in ways previously thought impossible. Already, scientists across space are beginning to understand, the Star Drinker observed. They see the patterns, grasp the possibilities. The Zarkax could not stop this evolution even if they wished to. High Counselor Vexthor's crystalline form had grown still, his internal patterns reflecting complex calculations. When he finally spoke, his tone had changed. Perhaps we have been wrong. Not just about humans, but about our role as guardians of knowledge. The only true guardianship is ensuring knowledge flows freely. Sarah responded. That's what the precursors understood, and what they built the Star Drinker to facilitate. The chamber erupted in discussion again, but now the tone was different. Species that had been rivals for millennia found themselves sharing ideas through the quantum network. The Star Drinker's presence acted as a universal translator, not just of language but of thought itself. As the implications of this new reality began to sink in, Sarah felt a familiar consciousness touch her mind. You did well, the Star Drinker communicated privately. But this is only the beginning. What comes next? Sarah asked, watching as the gathered species began forming new alliances and research partnerships. Evolution, the Star Drinker replied. Real evolution, not just of technology or physics, but of consciousness itself. Your species helped free me, and in doing so, you've opened a door that can never be closed. The quantum field pulsed with possibility, and Sarah Chen, the human who had changed the course of galactic history, smiled. The real trials were just beginning. Revolution. 1 year after the events at the arena, the landscape of galactic civilization had transformed beyond recognition. The ancient arena, once a place of fear and dominance, had become the heart of a new kind of institution, the Quantum Consciousness Research Center, where species from across the galaxy came together to explore the possibilities unlocked by the Star Drinker's liberation. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the new facility, watching ships from 100 worlds move through the crystalline desert's violet sky. Below, the arena's structures had evolved into something beautiful, its quantum reactive crystals now growing in patterns that reflected the harmonious interactions of multiple species' consciousness. The latest results from the Silicon Collective are fascinating, Professor Tyleth commented, floating beside her. The professor's bioluminescence had taken on new patterns since joining the quantum network, reflecting deeper understanding. They've developed a method of quantum consciousness transfer that works even for non-organic beings. The Zarkax helped with that. Actually, Sarah replied, still somewhat surprised by how things had changed. After their initial resistance, many younger Zarkax had embraced the new order, their natural quantum sensitivity making them invaluable partners in research. Their crystalline nature provided the key to bridging organic and synthetic consciousness. The Star Drinker's presence brushed against their minds, its vast consciousness now spanning the galaxy but still maintaining special connections to those who had helped free it. The network grows stronger each day. Species that once fought wars now share dreams. The precursors would be pleased. Through the quantum network, Sarah could sense the truth of these words. Across space, barriers between species were falling as consciousness touched consciousness. The mathematicians' collective shared pure abstract thought with organic beings. The Silicon Collective's digital dreams merged with biological imagination. Even the most isolated species were finding their place in this new unified field of shared experience. There are challenges still, Sarah acknowledged, thinking of the conservative factions in various species, including some humans, who feared such intimate connection with alien minds. Not everyone is ready for this level of change. Change is never uniform. The Star Drinker responded, its thoughts carrying echoes of ancient wisdom. The precursors understood this. They did not seek to force evolution, only to create the conditions where it could flourish naturally. Below them, a group of young Zarkak students worked alongside humans, their crystalline forms refracting light as they manipulated quantum fields with their combined consciousness. Among them was Vexithor's daughter, Kara, who had become one of the strongest advocates for interspecies cooperation. The old council feared chaos. Kara's thoughts reached them through the network. They could not see that true stability comes from harmony, not control. Sarah watched as the students' quantum manipulations created beautiful patterns in the air, their merged consciousness achieving effects that no single species could manage alone. This was the future she had hoped for. Not human dominance or Zarkak's control, but genuine collaboration. We're receiving signals from beyond the galaxy's edge, Professor Kyleth announced suddenly, tentacles rippling with excitement. The quantum network is picking up consciousness patterns unlike anything we've encountered. The Star Drinker's presence intensified. Yes, the network's growth has attracted attention. There are others out there, other precursor artifacts, other evolved consciousnesses. We are not alone in the greater universe. Sarah felt a familiar thrill of discovery. Can we communicate with them? We already are, the Star Drinker replied. Your liberation of me sent ripples through space-time itself. Other watchers, other guides left by the precursors, are awakening. The galaxy's consciousness is joining a much larger conversation. Through the quantum network, Sarah sensed the truth of this. The patterns were subtle but unmistakable, consciousness calling to consciousness across the void between galaxies. Humanity's first step into true galactic society had become something far greater. The trials of ascension, Sarah mused, remembering that crucial day in the arena. They weren't really about proving worthiness, were they? They were waiting for someone to understand instead of trying to control. The greatest trial is always understanding, the Star Drinker confirmed. Your species passed not through power or technology, but through this simple willingness to listen and learn. As if in response to these words, the quantum field rippled with new energy. Across the galaxy, minds touched minds in ever more complex patterns. The barriers between species, between organic and synthetic, between matter and consciousness itself, continued to blur and transform. Sarah felt Kara's consciousness brush against hers, sharing a vision of the future, a galaxy where evolution itself had taken on new meaning, where consciousness flowed as freely as light between the stars. The young Zarkax's crystalline form resonated with possibilities that her ancestors could never have imagined. We're not just changing ourselves, Kara observed. We're changing the very nature of existence in this galaxy. The Star Drinker's presence enveloped them all, its ancient consciousness carrying echoes of the precursor's dreams. This was always the goal, not to create a single dominant species, but to nurture the conditions for consciousness itself to evolve. What comes next will be beyond anything even I can predict. Sarah Chen, the human girl who had faced the trials and changed the galaxy, smiled as she sensed new consciousness patterns forming in the quantum field. Humanity's journey to the stars had opened a door not just for her species, but for all conscious beings. The true age of discovery was just beginning. Above them, the three suns of the Zarkax homeworld set in sequence, their light refracting through crystalline structures that had once been tools of power and now served as bridges between minds. The quantum field shimmered with countless consciousnesses sharing dreams, ideas, and visions of a future where the very concept of species might one day be transcended. The revolution wasn't just in politics or technology. It was in the very way conscious beings could exist and evolve together. And somewhere in the vast quantum field that connected it all, the Star Drinker continued its ancient purpose, not as a weapon or a test, but as a bridge to whatever remarkable evolution awaited them all.